All right, guys, thanks for joining us today. New setup this year. But today, new setup just because, we talked about, this being a bit of a milestone for us, Shaun.
Yep.
It is episode 52, marking, 1 year mark of releasing one episode per week.
Yep.
Which is kind of momentous, and we sort of talked about this leading up to this episode and saying how could we do something a little bit different, and I think that we came to the conclusion that we should just do a bit of a look back, reflect upon the year that was, and learnings and observations and anything, whether that's from a personal standpoint, personal takeaways, or practical, whatever it is. So I might throw it to you, man. I mean, year in review. What are your thoughts?
Firstly, I'm really proud of the fact that we've done the podcast for a year. What started out for us as with no set plan, no, objective other than to just start recording our conversations that we were having because we enjoyed having them. We felt that there was a lot of value within those conversations and that, we could, if we recorded them, put them out to the world, people would listen to them and perhaps have a different perspective on stuff, right?
Yeah.
With that sort of loose plan, I'm really proud of the fact that we've stuck it out for a year. And it hasn't really been sticking it out. I wouldn't even put it as that, because it hasn't been something that I've felt is, something we've had to do.
Yeah, for sure.
At no point have I felt that. There's obviously work involved. You put a lot of work in on the production side. I do some stuff as well for the podcast, and we've worked that synergy out as well now over time, which has evolved, which is interesting, which we can talk about too. But it's never really felt like work.
Yeah.
I guess because we don't have that thing where we're like, we need to build up this podcast so that we can then start to get sponsors and monetize it and all that sort of shit. So doing it for a year has also shown me that it's something that there's something to it. There's something that really, I love doing it, period. Yeah. And the fact that I've been doing it, and usually if there's something that I'm not really down for, I'll shift out of it pretty quick. Mm-hmm. Like I don't feel the need to sort of stick stuff out that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
That's not how I am anymore. So yeah, man, I'm really excited for like where it's going, and it keeps evolving for us. It's been a year and it's evolved so many different ways for us.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sounds like it's a good way to put it is it's still alive. Well alive in what sounds like both of us.
Yeah.
Something that still has much life and vigor and energy that we want to keep sort of riding on and seeing where it takes us essentially. But reflecting back, I think it's it'll be a nice way for us to just perhaps paint a picture for maybe those who don't know the origin story of the podcast, who haven't listened to episode 1 and have sort of just jumped on through whatever channel and have supported us, which we are super, super grateful for, obviously.
Very happy about that. Yeah.
But I mean, talking about evolution, it's really nice to talk about, the beginnings of this and what it represented and where it is now. And I guess it still is a really nice, in some ways, a reflection of what it was supposed to be, which I love.
Yeah.
It started off, Shaun and I, we'd always come together like this, have a coffee, have a tea together, have some lunch, have a meal of any type, and we'd just talk. And the nature of our conversations would vary quite a lot, just based on what's happening in, my life, your life, in the little bubbles that we sort of associate in or involve ourselves in. And we'd have really long conversations, I think. It'd be like stuff that we'd quite easily and quickly sort of dive into in much more depth and detail. And it would really, I guess it'll quite quickly like transcend this surface level discussion about how's your life type thing, how's work and all that sort of junk.
I don't think we talk about that still, man, much.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
I didn't
exactly.
tend to know what you're doing on a like day-to-day-ish
Yeah.
basis, and I know you don't know about mine. We're just kind of doing our thing, but that's not what our conversations really consist of.
Yeah, so I guess like the thing with those conversations is we'd always land at a place where we're like, concluding our meetup or whatever, and we'd just be like, hey, we should have recorded that conversation. And I'm pretty sure we said that for quite a long time.
It was ages, man.
It was a long time.
Yeah.
I would say it's at least a year, until one day I just decided to go ahead and take advantage of a sale that I found on the internet.
Yeah.
And I bought these two microphones that we're speaking into right now. And that was it. I was just like, hey mate, I bought mics.
Yeah, I remember. You messaged me on WhatsApp and you're like, hey, I bought the mics, so we need to start recording those. And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, obviously, as you're saying, we like introduced different layers to how we present this, even up to, today where we're introducing a visual element now to our one-on-one conversations, which we haven't had to date, which is cool, I think. And we always started going into this with a very clear, not even a vision, but a very clear ethos about what this was about, right? First and foremost, it was about the fact that we just wanted to have these conversations that we thought could potentially help people. And I think they do, I really do, right? I think it's testament to our, slowly but still growing audience, and our simple request for people to share if they feel, so called to do so, based on any sort of, inclination from the conversations that we have, whether that's, between just the two of us or a guest, right? And that is enough payment for us, right? That is truly the price that we ask. It's an offering, really, right?
Yeah, man.
And we said that we were both avid listeners and still are avid listeners of various other podcasts, but what we don't like about many of them is, the 7+ minute ads that start off any podcast conversation. And it's not so much about, the content of the ads itself, but I think for me anyway, I'll speak for myself, is that it's not about, the monetization of these, conversations either. If it ever got to that point, then I wouldn't want to do it anymore, And I think we've kept that sort of ethos going and kept true to that. Because for me, it represents a very clear, approach and alignment with, to act with integrity, essentially, with what we're trying to do, and holds us to account to that point, We've done it and we've worked, and it isn't something that is not time consuming. It is an everyday thing. We have been doing something for the podcast every day for a year,
and some of those things take hours a day.
Exactly, and I think I'm proud that we're able to continue to represent that, and it's quite a strong sort of ethos that rings quite true.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. And me personally, with the advertising thing, I have no qualms making money, right? So in fact, I'm quite driven by that in parts of my life. That, and we talk about it on different parts of the podcast, that I'm a big fan of making money, as long as it's done the right way, legal, moral, ethical, or that. So but I respect people that advertise on their podcast. They've done a lot of work to get their listenership up, and that's how they eat, man. That's how they live, and that's how they fuel their lifestyles. And if that's your model, that's cool. It's just not our model, right?
Correct.
And it's not what floats my boat. When we started, we were like, it was one of the first things we talk about, that we'd never advertise on the podcast.
Yep.
And that's also come across that on another podcast that I listen to that I love, right, which is Relay F, Andy Frisella, and he never advertises, and I really respect that. And there's other people who I listen to that didn't advertise and now they've started advertising. And there's just something about it. I'm like, oh man, like why'd you have to? And I always skip it. That's the point, right? I always skip it. I feel like it breaks the like the flow of the episode or the conversation, really, right? It's not about like having a nice clean episode. It's the conversation, the flow of that. Because it all matters. It all matters to how someone receives it, what they're taking in, and what they take from the conversations that we have, right? So, yeah, man. I'm also, for someone who's always looking at opportunity and how to improve things, how to make the most out of situations, the advertising thing is really interesting to me as well. And it also tells me something about what this means to me, that I don't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
Like I don't care about that at all.
Yeah.
All I care about is doing it. And, actually the process of doing it has yielded a lot for me that I never ever thought about. So I'd like to get into that.
For sure.
Which is like the consistency, the discipline of it, doing things that, I never really wanted to do, frankly, but I knew would always benefit me to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Things like just saying what you want and putting it out, like speaking true to yourself.
Yeah.
And putting that out publicly. Like that was a thing for me that I didn't want to do for a long time. I was like, I'll just put out the things that I want people to see, which I think is what a lot of people do on social media, period. And don't need to get into the reasons why. We talk about that on a lot of other episodes, but it's, the authenticity of it and being true to myself and what I put out there and my integrity is really important. And this has helped me to, I guess, bolster that,
Yeah.
And in terms of like gaining the confidence to do that in all areas of my life, right? Because kind of like if we can talk about this here and put it out on iTunes and Spotify and Instagram and Facebook and all those places, I really have no problem saying things to people directly now. Because I've always been of the opinion, man, if you're going to say something on social media anyway, you should be able to say it to someone's face. Pretty shitty thing to do to hide behind a screen.
Yeah.
But doing this, it's kind of like practice for that,
Sure.
for speaking straight from your heart, saying what you really want to say, being direct, being frank when you need to be frank, not being a dick, but, saying things that you feel need to be said instead of holding them in.
Yeah.
So that's been, I feel I've benefited from that. And the consistency of doing it, every week, the discipline of it. Like,
talk more about that and how that, I guess, contrasts to, pre-podcast and your, rhythm.
Yep. Yeah, man. So like my rhythm is all over the place. So I don't have a set routine for anything really, except this now, right? And the set routine of doing this has shown me that, like, it's proven to me that doing little things consistently really does add up to a significant result, right? I was always the type of person that I would put like 17 things on my to-do list for a day because I had to take the world over in a day.
Yeah.
And then if I didn't do it, I felt like shit about it. I tried to do it again the next day. I did that for years. Even, learning about things, about how to schedule things, put your goals into smaller, all that shit, right? Like your ambitions are your ambitions. I know that my ambitions are, a bit grand. And in line with that goes me wanting to do everything now, or get it all done. And it's just not how shit builds. It's not like you don't build a building in a day. It's not going to happen no matter how much you want it to.
Brick by brick.
That's it, right? And it's not going to be good if you try to build it in a day either, because you don't have all that stuff in between where you're learning and you're growing, you're refining, you're adapting, and then, putting all of that into account to deliver a better result at the end of the day. So doing this consistently and the stuff we do every day, right? So like editing, reviewing, posting, all of that. It's helped me to realize that when you do actually chunk stuff, do little by little, it builds into a consistency that delivers a significant result, which is really important. And, also, honestly, you've helped with that more than anything, because if it was left to me, I highly doubt we would have got episodes out on the same day, every week. Like, you're good with that. You're good with the consistency, right? And you've held me to account on that. Like, when I've slipped on stuff, you're like, man, I'm just letting you know that this is where we're at and this is what we agreed on. And it's never like it's never malicious. I never take it as like, oh, Les is annoyed at me and he's telling me off about it. It's not what it is. You know, I know that's not the intention of it. But it does make me go like, oh shit, you know, you're slipping, you need to come back to it. And then when I focus on it, everything's better. And then even with, you know, having these conversations and the things we discuss is what, you know, brought to life True North for us, right? Which is our program that we've got our first cohort coming up for. And again, it was something that you approached me with to do that I really didn't want to do at the time. And even that whole time of that process, you've been like essentially pushing me, you know, nurturing me in that way to do those tasks, do the things that will get me to where I know there's things you see in me that I don't see in myself. And that's one dynamic of our relationship, which I really enjoy, right? I think we do that for each other in different elements.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's things I haven't wanted to do. Like, I've been informally mentoring and coaching people for a while on the things that I know and I'm good at. And I've always been mindful that I never want to try and give someone advice on something I don't know. Like, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
I have no desire to be a guru of any type or to be seen that way. It's not like it doesn't do anything for me. So, you know, actually formally coaching people or formally mentoring people, if you want to call it formal, you know what I mean, right? Is something I haven't really thought about doing. And I was scared to do because of what the perception is or how it might come off. And then you've really pushed me down that path, which has been great for me. And even in, you know, the people that I've been doing it with in informal basis, I've seen that shift and my approach to that shift. And I've seen things turn out better for those people really recently, you know, like in this last couple of months and that we've been talking about. So the consistency, but is a point, like on True North, is we have a set meeting every week. We have tasks every week. You introduce me to a project management tool that I hadn't used before. You stick it on, you see everything, and it just builds and builds and builds and builds. And that's what, it's all born from the podcast.
Yeah.
To me, you know, and like the humble beginning of it to then the consistency of it, you keeping us on track with it, me now becoming more disciplined as a person. Like, I'm much more, I guess, I place more weight on like deadlines, regardless of if I can shift them or not.
Yeah.
You know, before, you know what I'm like, bro. Like, I'm easy to shift my whole day upside down, do something that was meant to happen at 9 a.m. at 1 a.m. the next day. Like, I don't care. It's fine. As long as I do it, it's done. But understanding that other people don't operate like me, like you don't operate the way I do, right? So if we agree on a time, got to stick to the time, even though I can ask you. And, you know, at the start of it, I always would shift stuff. I'd be like, hey, bro, can we shift this? Can we do this? And you were always very gracious in doing that. But then after doing it for a while and then realizing what that routine is like and how beneficial it is, I've also understood, like, I shouldn't keep doing that to you. You know, that's how you want to work. And also there's a reason you like it and I start to like it. And it's because of all these cascade of benefits that happen from the consistency and sticking to what you say you're going to do, you know?
Yeah. And I think obviously there's a lot of really good points to talk about from that. And, you know, I might try and follow them back in a chronological way if I can remember. But, you know, firstly about using like this as a platform of expression has been something that has really shifted something in me personally, in the way that I simply operate and just see the world, I suppose. And I think it's a very subtle thing. So I think most listeners of this and most people who know me know that I'm a pretty soft-spoken person, you know. I'm not someone who can easily get up in front of people, get behind a mic and speak and disseminate information. It's not to say that I can't, because I have, and I've done that many times before in my career. I've had to do that in my past life, and it's you know, the first way that I sort of what brings to mind when you mentioned it is like I've been doing that for a long time, but through different ways. You know, I started blogging, you know, in 2015. You know, you remember like Holistic Human when that first came out.
Yeah.
That was just a way for me. I wasn't writing for anyone else. You know, I was simply putting things down. Like I was in a stage where I was learning, I was growing, and I had an urge to express myself, right? And to essentially have a voice in the public arena.
Yeah.
And that was behind words, you know. It was still behind words. I needn't have a voice that can be heard by your ears, and there is no image to the person who is speaking behind these words. So there was still a semblance of hiding behind the words, right? It was like a slow process, you know, and I was writing every day for a year at least. That was my goal when I first started Holistic Human. I felt like I had enough to say that I would write a piece and post every day, and whoever read it, right? And it was more than anything. It was just you know, a therapeutic process for myself.
Yeah.
When it comes to like the podcast and the video content and all that sort of thing that has, you know, emerged this year, it's like really stepped that up, obviously, you know, because I'm behind the camera a lot now, and I put myself out there on a daily basis. You know, we have daily posts where, you know, either you or I are speaking, and you know, it really let me or helped me to let go of that that fear of being seen in a certain way, in a certain light. I think similar to you, you know, as you described.
Yeah.
Because I've always had that reservation for whatever reason, and now, you know, the more mediums I can find to push our things out on, to you know, hopefully get our words into more people's ears. I've leveraged that, like, you know, that's part of our evolution as well. You know, now we're very consistent on all platforms, all social platforms. You know, even like YouTube and LinkedIn and things like this, right? Even when we just started with Facebook and IG to start off with. So I guess that's one of the big things for me. Like, it's truly changed the way that I simply, you know, operate. You know, my modus operandi. Like, it's just different.
Yeah.
You know, and again, it's not for anyone else but myself. You know, and which is the beautiful thing. What it has done, it's just allowed me to express more and more and more. Like, this is the beauty of these conversations, right? It's simply an opportunity to reflect in real time, which I love.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that, and that's the beauty of conversation, which I'll come back to, you know, later down the track in the conversation, I hope. But yeah, like, in terms of the process itself, like you said, you know, I've always operated in a very disciplined way. I don't know where that was from, you know, maybe ingrained through my parents, maybe that's partly through the project management discipline that I did for so long in the corporate world. And maybe that's just, you know, something that was, you know, inherent in me some way, somehow, right? But discipline has always been a big thing for me. And like you said, you know, it's my preferred behavior and my go-to behavior, but it's not yours. And it, like, on the flip side, it helped me understand. Like, that's why I was just like, look, it works for me, and it seems to work for a lot of people in different contexts and things, but it doesn't mean it has to work for everyone, right? And I know it didn't for you at the start, right? And I was just like, look, whatever, man. Like, look, this is, but for me, like, and I think what sort of helped us along the way is that when there's like, when we are able to, you know, step back and see like a bigger picture or an objective that we're, you know, collectively as a you know, as a duo are trying to achieve, there just comes set timeframes. That's it. Those are associated, and it's best that there are measures involved to ensure that happens. And I think we operated quite well, I would say. There were like the hiccups were more just us learning how to do this thing, like the practicalities of podcasting, all that sort of stuff. That was like the technical stuff that we had to learn. And I think that for me, like that has been the biggest gift for me. Like before I started, I wouldn't call myself any sort of expert in doing anything from a technical standpoint, from a social media perspective, but I think I'm pretty proficient now.
Yeah, you are, man. Like with all the production and the editing and everything, like you cut the videos, you do all the captioning, you sync it all up. You're the one posting it to all the different platforms. So yeah, man, you are.
Yeah, like I mean, it's something that I never thought that I would want to learn, but I have learnt it, and it's been really a really fruitful experience for me.
Yeah.
Just because it's been able to, inform and feed a lot of other, pursuits of mine. Like I created an entire meditation program from the skills that I learned from, production, and vice versa. That also informed the evolution and the presentation of our content as well.
Yeah.
And various other things like True North as well, right? A lot of the stuff there. So that side of things, like just from a practical skill standpoint, like it's been cool. Like I really enjoy that stuff. Like I, in my younger years, in my early 20s, I used to play around with like, Photoshop and things like this for fun, like leisurely, and I taught myself how to use it, but I forgot all that stuff. But the point I'm trying to make is I enjoyed that stuff, and I did it like for fun, as a hobby, essentially, right? So for me to be able to learn it and apply it, in this context, it's been cool. It's been a cool ride.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I guess the other cool thing about like the technical aspects of it is you and I feel have complementary skills as well in that. So I don't edit any type of video or stuff like that, but I'm good with design, so when we do like logo, layout, websites and stuff like that, I can do that. And then we're able to feed each other what we need to get that whole thing going and as a really cohesive package, which I think is really cool. And yeah, man, I've understood about myself for a long time. Like I feel like I'm not frustrated. I'm just kind of like a suppressed designer. Right? Because I love aesthetics. If I had all the time in the world, I would refine a logo for hours and hours and hours. I just don't out of practicality. I care about how things present for how they're received, right? It's important. That's why we all love beautiful pictures and, little touches and all that sort of stuff. But my point is like this gives us an avenue to hone our technical skills and express ourselves in those areas as well, right? Which is cool, which is really cool, and that's something I've enjoyed as well. Yeah,
for sure. I think the other thing, and I want to jump back on, is like the conversational aspect of it. And that like evolutionary piece. So, like I said, jumping back, we sort of started as a very, I guess, candid, a very open conversation type style.
Yeah.
But we were driven by particular topics, and we thought that we'd just raise a topic and we'd talk about the topic on the particular episode, and then we introduced guests, and we sort of tried the same approach of introducing topics for the guest to kick off the conversation, essentially, right? But then like slowly it sort of organically sort of just changed, right? From a topic-based discussion into something that was more and more just like a natural, organic, flowy conversation. Which was centered around story, the story of the guest, and the story that is, occupying our field of consciousness at the point in time. What's happening in our worlds, which I feel really honors the original essence of what we wanted to achieve anyway, right? Because it's just, like I said, you mentioned the word authentic once before, right? And I think it really is that. And I think, again, the platform and medium of conversation, it really allows, not only a conversation with the person that you're speaking with, but a dialogue with the experience itself and what that entails, like with an inner conversation with oneself.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
And it's all centered around story. Do you know what I mean? It's the story of the guest. But then they've got stories that are attached to certain things within that story.
And meanings they've given to different things,
which then incite some sort of, provocation within each of us, right? Some sort of imagery, some sort of like remembrance of some sort. It touches us in some way, informs like our unique individual story. Enough so to elicit a response or a question, right?
Yes.
And then it requires the guest or whoever is the respondent of the question to then dig deeper into the story to find out what the root of it all is. And, it's just a beautiful unfurling in my mind. Like that, for me, it has been a real gift, for me personally, in terms of what I've been able to just understand of myself, and it's not anything necessarily profound in the grander context of things. To me, it is quite, because it changes the way that I see the world, and that is enough to make something, regardless of how small it may seem, profound, and I think the beauty of that is that we bring in such, and we've had like the opportunity to talk to such diverse range of people, which we wouldn't have been able to if we didn't have this platform, right? Whether it's us reaching out to people and them agreeing to want to chat with us, or vice versa, people wanting to share their voice on our platform. It's been really nice. It's like a really organic thing, it's never contrived. It's never asking for anything that no one wants to sort of contribute, right? It's always comes from a place that is honest and true, We're just about sharing truth at the end of the day. And giving, if we have a platform to do that, and if people want to also, move within this, within this space, then it creates magic, man.
Yeah, it does. And, what's really interesting about it is we've heard it from quite a few people now. Once we finish recording the episode, there's that little bit of time after you hit stop record and you're just talking about it. And so many people say to us, they're like, this is the first time I've ever talked about that. Or this is the first time I've had the space to be able to, discuss this with anyone.
Well, they say they actually thank us for taking them down a certain route of, inquiry or thought.
Yeah, that's right. Because like you mentioned, our conversations are really organic. And, for people that are watching this, listening to this, is we prepare, but very minimally, and by that, I mean, we know who our guests are. We, obviously figure out their backgrounds and things like that. That's how we become interested in them. A lot of people, the people that we followed, you followed or I followed, and they interest us, reach out to them. But even people that have reached out to us, we do a little bit of, research, but not too much. And I've told you, I personally do that intentionally because I don't want to have this fixed track of what we're going to discuss, of who I think they are. Because, regardless of who you are, there's only little bits put out about you, and that we put out about ourselves on all these platforms, right? So I feel like if I just delve into this person so deep, there's people that do it and they know a lot about their guests, right? That whole podcast, and they know everything about the guests, and it's really interesting because they're able to extract certain things because of the deep research. But on the flip side, I feel like you then have an image or a notion of this person in your mind that may not be who turns up in front of you on the day, right? And what I really enjoy about the conversations we have is that through intentionally not going that deep down the path, we meet them where they're at, where they're at in that part of their story, their journey, and then the conversations just flow different. because it's really based on what they share with us from their story and what they share of their story, right? We always open with, tell us about your origins, where you're from, as much detail as you want. People are going to share what's important to them when you invite them to do that. And then from that, we pick the threads, right? And I think that's how we get down these different paths and these different, pockets and rabbit holes in the conversations we have that make us, feel like, oh shit, when we're having these conversations, or it does spark those things within us, like those things that just pluck on the strings of our soul or on those of the guests that come on and from what they share, right? Yeah. And I've had so many moments that people have said something and I'm like, fuck, that's it. Like, that's it. It just hits home for you. Because wherever you are, whatever stories you're telling yourself in your mind or whatever you're experiencing in that point in time in our lives, right? And that's been a real gift for me from the conversations. It's just, these unexpected waves of enlightenment that I felt, or, being able to crystallize something that I felt that I've never been able to articulate, and the person just articulates it perfectly, And then you have that, that's that gem. Those are those nuggets that I talk about, when we say at the end, if there's some nuggets you've got, share it with someone else, they're those nuggets that I get. And that's also something that honestly drives me to keep doing the podcast, right? Which is selfishly to experience that. We've had the opportunity to speak with people that, like you said, we wouldn't have spoken to, period.
Totally.
We'd have no reason to, really. Yeah. Or how would we have spurred that conversation? But having the platform of the podcast has given us an opportunity to have these conversations. And you never know what comes out of that, which is beautiful too.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, knowing that more of those moments that have come really gets me excited to do more, to have more guests on, to discuss with them, to be really open and, discussing things with them. And there's that buzzword right now, vulnerable, right? But vulnerable is not your sad story. Vulnerable is just the naked truth, your bare naked truth, right? So, and the types of conversations we have and, people being really open with us, and exposing that vulnerability, right? Their bare naked truth allows us to go down these paths of conversation that you wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah.
Right? If you approach someone for in a very surface level, or if you DM them or you send them an email, you're just going to get that very surface level. But being able to have these conversations, us holding the space for that conversation, and it's a long format, right? It's around an hour or so. You can get to these other places. And yeah, that part's just really, really cool. And another part that drives me, that excites me about it, is the reason that I want to keep doing podcasts as well, right, is because there's been so many times listening to other podcasts that I've had those moments as well. Someone said something and it's just struck a chord for me. It's changed the trajectory of where I was going based on that little part I heard, or the whole conversation I heard, the feeling I got from listening to conversation, some comfort I felt in it, or some really abrupt truth that, slapped me in the face that I had to face. And I feel like there are moments, and I know there are, that has happened for people listening to our podcast because they've told me. They've shared it with me. They're like, man, you guys said this and it made me think about it this way. Or when I heard that, it made me do this, right? And that's the gold. That's again, I don't need payment for this. Otherwise we'd charge. We'd have sponsors and shit, right? But that part is fulfilling. That part's satisfying. That part as a type of reward is awesome.
Yeah.
That you can have that effect on someone through a conversation, and that we can provide that I love that. I really love that.
Yeah. And I think the key to everything that you just said really boils down to a few things, right? The first thing is that there isn't a set direction or track of conversation. For the most part, when you're getting someone on for a conversation, there's a reason. You want them to share something that you feel like they can speak about. You know, whatever that is. But I think that the fact that we leave it open is, I think guests are quite surprised by that to a certain degree, right? And I think it's a refreshing thing. It feels more real, you know, in a lot of different ways. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
It's not contrived. There's no real motive behind it other than we just want to chat with you. We want to have a real conversation, you know.
Because also we're not promoting anything,
Yeah.
you know, and we're very frank with people about that, which is like our podcast is not a promotional tool for like if you've released something and you want to plug it. Like that's not what we're doing here.
Correct. And I think the other one that you hit on is really about like, you know, something that I'm very big on, and even more so, you know, today and the last like 6 months or so of my life is that, you know, the honoring of questions, right? And like questions from the point of, you know, I always say that the best answers are unmet questions, right? And you can only really receive a question that is unmet to you from a place that you can't really, you know, see it from, you know. It sort of blindsides you.
Yeah.
But it opens you up, you know,
Yeah.
to that possibility of inquiry at least, at the very least.
For sure. Like it makes you think about something you wouldn't have thought about.
Yeah.
And in a way you wouldn't have approached it.
And that's what I really like about it, because the diversity of guests, regardless of how many fucking followers and shit like that they have, we don't care. All right. I really respect the fact that everyone has a story to tell and everyone has lived a unique life, right? And that's a beautiful thing. And for anyone, even if people have lived, you know, seemingly parallel lives from a external perspective, internally it's different. And how they describe it's going to be different. The words they're going to use are different. And how they interpret the words is going to be different, right? So how they explain it to us is going to be different. And like those are the things, right, that help us. Like it could be like the same line of thought or set of principles explained in like 15 different ways. It could be the 16th that drops for us, that makes sense for us and hits for us.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's important, like from, as you were saying, when people listen, right, it takes just that one, you know, that one phrase, that one word from one person who says it the right way for you.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah, man, for sure. And, you know, people's stories and the experiences they've had is what has led them to where they are, right? So often we see like their outward projection of whatever type of success they've put out to the world or product or business they have or, you know, whatever it is that they do and they kind of put out as their identity to the world, right?
Yeah.
But like you said, there's all these different ways that people get there. They can look parallel, they can look the same, as in like, oh, this guy's a good businessman, or this person's a good coach, or this person's a great athlete. But the way they get there is different.
Yeah.
And like you said, they can explain it in a different way that just hits right for that person. And really the goal is for you to take whatever we discuss, internalize it, think about it, and then do something with it.
I think that's the most important thing. And I think it like comes back to the very start of what we, like how we started off in this thing, right? We were talking about it for like a year. And like the way that I see it is like the difference between learning and knowledge and how you convert that into like lived wisdom. You know, I think we've talked about this a few times, but I love that this sort of platform and what we're talking about is sort of just led here, right, to this point, is that it took us a while. We always knew that like we could add some sort of value to someone else's life through our conversation, right? And that's not from an arrogant point of view. That's just from the fact that, you know, what we talk about is diverse, it's deep, it's nuanced, and most people can get something out of, you know, at least one word or one phrase or whatever, you know, good or bad, right? And I think it's the difference between, you know, chasing for knowledge and just being like a consumer of knowledge. Like, you know, behind here, I've got like a shitload of books, hundreds of books. I've got a stack there, printed papers that I need to read, everything, right? I love to learn, right? But there is a difference between like the knowledge, the consumption of knowledge and, you know, learning it, but then how do you interpret it and how do you enact it into something that means something to you, you know?
Like, what are you going to do with
it?
It
needs to be done. There is action that needs to follow, you know? So we talked about the podcast for about 12 months, at least.
Yeah.
And we did fuck all about it, you know?
Yeah.
For whatever reason, right? we twiddled our thumbs, but then we just decided to press go.
Yeah.
You know, it was time to do it.
That's
and
right.
And we learned on the job. We really did. We had no idea what the hell we were doing going in there, but the pressure made us or required us to learn and learn fast enough for us to meet our set, deadlines of one episode per week.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a nice way to put it in that sense, right? This journey has been really an encapsulation of that to every degree, just because the learning and doing has come hand in hand.
Yeah.
This whole journey. Do you know what I mean?
And in the doing, you learn too.
Exactly.
And you learn.
It
things,
informs each other, right?
That's right.
It's a cyclic, informing, right?
That's right.
The action informs your knowledge, and the knowledge informs your action. You know?
Great way to put it.
Yeah.
Great way to put it, man.
Yeah.
And like you said, we waited like 12 months before we did anything. But then that one small action of you buying the microphones and messaging me was like, well, we have to do it now. You have the microphones. And then had to figure out what program you use to record it, how to connect the microphones, how to level them out. Then what file do you need? How are you going to get it onto Spotify and iTunes and all that stuff, right? And like you said, it was like learning on the job. We just had to figure that shit out.
Yeah.
And like at the start, people go back and listen, like the sound quality was shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Terrible.
We because we knew it was going to be people that we know listening at the start, we'd kind of preface and be like, hey man, the audio quality is not that great, just kind of put up with it. Like we're improving it.
Yeah.
And we did. And then it evolved into all these other things, all these other skills that we had to acquire in order to put it out the way that we wanted to, right? And then things we come across and testing things out, shifting our schedules, how that works, trying to align with, how each of us likes to work, and slowing that into the things that we do, because this is not the only thing that you and I do.
Yeah, exactly.
We have our own businesses like that we run, that, and not just one either. So, slotting this in, we need to work out how to do that. And then that has in turn helped us to manage our time better, which is, just recently we shifted how we do things for the podcast, which I know has had a market shift for each of us in terms of our scheduling and how that's affected our work outside of this, right? And it's all by just doing it, is my point.
Yeah.
I listened to podcasts yesterday. It was Ed Milet and the founder of Netflix. I really can't remember his name, but it's That Will Never Work on Instagram, right? That's his handle. But and he talked about that. And see, again, the beauty of like listening to podcasts and just hearing things and it hitting for you. He gave this example about this girl who wanted to start renting out her clothes. And she was like, I need to build this app and I need to do this. And he's like, you just need to get a Sharpie and a piece of paper and put a sign up on your dorm room that says, I want to rent out my clothes. Would you like to rent them? And it reminded me like, that was buying the mics. That was buying the mics. And the 12 months was, how are we going to put it out? What are we going to record? What do you need for it? Where are we going to do it? How are we going to post about it? Who are we going to share it with? And none of that fucking mattered, right? Got the mics, and then we worked all that stuff out. And the evolution and the action that we've taken week on week on week, day to day to day, has been what's allowed us to get to a point where we have like a well-oiled machine on the podcast, whereas we know what we're doing now for what we want to put out, how we want to present it, how we want to get it out. But it's by doing those things, not pondering on them and being like, oh, let's have a meeting about thinking about what we're going to do. We just like, so much of our shit we do over WhatsApp that like one of us will see hours later and then just be like, yep, got it, thumbs up. And then without even saying anything, like you do it or I do it. And then when we talk about shit later, like it's done. And then that's what allows us to do the next thing, not thinking about what we should have done and then working out how or when and all that shit. Like, yeah, you debrief and stuff, but if it goes right, we just go, but it's by doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And yeah, man, I think the approach we've taken and kind of putting that pressure on ourselves with the timeline has helped with that for sure.
Yeah. And I think, look, the moral of that really is, and what we want to, or what I want to really say to the audience, at least, is that even like the gift of knowledge is a beautiful thing, and if it rings true to you for some reason, no matter what it is, like don't just let that gift go. You know.
Yeah.
We ask that you pass it on, yes, of course, but at the same time, like part of learning is doing. Like there is no learning without doing. Like I firmly believe that, right?
Well, I think knowledge is useless unless you do something with it.
So exactly. So that's really something that you know, I personally am wanting to, I guess, represent for myself in everything that I do now, a lot more, because it's a very simple principle, you know, and it's something that I, you know, truly live and breathe. And yeah, I think that, you know, going forward, it's just a nourishing thing for your life, for your soul, for anything that you want to do, you know. So yeah, I want to quickly close this off, right? Well, let's talk a little bit about what we feel, you know, personally, because we haven't talked about this at all. Like going forward, what's this for you? What do you want it to? Is there anything that you feel, you know, you want to, I guess, achieve or do differently, or you know, what does this look like for you in the next 12 months?
Well, you know, I never really planned 12 months out because in my experience, life changes much faster than that, right? Especially with the way that I operate. So, you know, if I look at the next, say, 3 to 6 months, it's just keeping on doing what we're doing and making those refinements along the way, right? And taking a step back and being like, what's working, what's not. And by what's working or not, I mean, it's like what's working, what's not for us.
Yeah.
Right? In terms of this continuing to do something beneficial for us and not be like, oh, we need to get these edits out so we can get the episode out, and we have to keep getting an episode out just because we're doing it once a week. Because again, that's not what it is for me. The discipline of that is great, awesome, really beneficial, but it's not the driving force of doing it. Like I'm not trying to learn discipline through doing this.
Yeah.
You know, I really want to, for me personally, it's more about eking more out from people and their stories and becoming a better question asker.
Yeah.
Right? That's something I've been thinking about a lot, which we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
Is, you know, I've been trying to, well, when I'm listening to other people that I really enjoy listening to, like on podcasts or in speeches and stuff and interviews, I'm like, what are the terms they're using? How are they asking questions that is making people answer in these beautiful ways, right? So instead of just being like, do you agree with this, which is a yes or no, it's like, tell me about this.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this. Describe that time, you know? Learning those, I guess, you call them technical skills, and then making them a really innate part of my like vernacular and skill set, so that we can have even deeper, even richer conversations. Because the ones we've had already have been awesome and really deep and really rich. But there's always levels to the shit, right? And I just want to get better and better at that. And because also of how that translates just into life, you know?
Sure.
I just see myself out in the world just having such better conversations now because of what we do here.
Yeah, 100%.
You know?
100%.
And that's all I want out of it, man. I just want to keep putting these out. I want to keep, I want to, you know, be able to ask questions in a way that like gets closer to the root of things, deeper things, you know, like I said, ekes more out from the conversations so that people can take more nuggets away from it.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I just love that feeling, man, when someone comes to me and they're like, dude, you guys said this, or oh, that person on your podcast said this, and it did this for me. I fucking love that, man. Like, that's the juice. For me, that's the juice. And the discipline part as well, though, on the flip side. Just because, like, staying consistent, like, I'm still working on that. I'm not, like, I'm disciplined in that I can get stuff done. I know that I'll keep promises to myself, all that. But consistency is something that I'm not great at. So I want to keep working on that personally. Yeah. And what about you, man? What do you want to do? Or get out of this process, I guess?
Yeah, look.
Going forward.
like you said, it's like, holistically, it's a really well-oiled machine right now, which is great. And like, even going forward, we've got like guests lined up for the next couple of months and things like this, which is like fucking awesome, like epic, right? So obviously for me, like we said when we started off this conversation, it remains very much alive in me. And as long as it's alive in me, it will continue to go ahead, right? And like, along the same theme of questions, right? Like I said, and this might be more from a selfish point of view in terms of wanting to get gifted with more like unmet questions from people. I really want interaction from our audience. What I love about like, again, about podcasts and like, they have like mailbag sections where they have like ask me anything, whatever it is, right? When their listeners will ask them questions. And again, they're going to be things that are likely to come and take us by surprise. And I love that, and if that were like something that really informed our conversations going forward as well, that would be a fun little wrinkle to introduce in my mind, So I love that. I'd really like, I guess, to introduce that. So look, like we always ask this at the end of the podcast, like, if you've got any questions, send them through. But like, if I was to preface in a way, like we're going to hopefully have like a mailbag or a ask me anything type like, interaction. If we get enough questions to inform that, send them in and like, you can, jump on and be part of the conversation in that way, which would be awesome. I'd really love that.
That'd be cool, man. I'd be down for that. So man, there's like so many ways people can get in touch with us, like DM us. Like you said, we put the email out at the end of every podcast, which is the email that, is dedicated to the podcast. People have questions. Send them in, we'll shout you out,
That's the Hustle and Flow podcast at gmail.com, by
That's
the way.
it. Yeah, man.
And nice way to wrap it all up, mate. Year in review, episode 52. Where can people find you, bro?
Easiest place to find me is on Instagram. So Shaun_Coop, which is SHAUN_COOP. And people can find us as well at true-north.co, which is the website, and on Instagram, true_north.co.
Check out the website. It's a beautiful website. We're very proud of it.
Happy with that.
Shaun put a lot of work into it and making it look very professional, and it is a beautiful representation of what we're like sort of very excited about offering to the world. So check it out. For me, findingspace.co. You can always find me there. All my latest stuff is going to be posted on there, as well as Facebook and Instagram. It's at findingspace.co.
Cool, man. And as always, guys, if you took something from this conversation, learned something, gave you a different perspective, share it with just one other person. That's all we ask. Humble request. And until next time.
On to the next one, guys.